Delight Your Marriage, episode 47.
Welcome to the Delight Your Marriage podcast, the show where you hear from amazing and inspiring wives sharing their struggles, triumphs, and advice for this journey called marriage. Here's your host, Belah Rose.
Hello, and this is Belah. I want to thank you for joining today. It is the second half of this awesome interview with Sheila, where she shares a very specific technique that females can implement to increase pleasure immediately in the bedroom. And I think not only that, there's just so many other great questions. I asked Sheila actually a question that's kind of been on my heart recently, and you'll be interested in what her response is because it's very thought through. You can tell she's just really been steeped in the scripture and in this literature about sexuality and about the history for a long time. And I love that she's willing to share so much that she is. Okay, let's dive in. Well, I want to ask you how your marriage, we talked a little bit about your marriage before, early on, but what does your marriage look like now? And tell us a little bit about that, would you?
Well, we're going through such transitions right now, so we've actually been talking a lot about this in the last year because, when you do go through the empty nest thing, because that's coming, our younger daughter's leaving home at the end of the summer, and so we've just been talking a lot about what we're going to do to make sure that life is still exciting, and what we can do to just to get some new things in our lives and to really enjoy being together, just the two of us, because so often the kids leave home and then life gets really boring. and especially for women, it can be a huge loss. Like, I'm very emotional about my daughter leaving, and it's not because I want her to leave. I do. We live in a small town, and she is not meant to be in a small town. So, she needs to leave just to come into herself, and I'm happy for her about that. But she's one of my best friends. I know they say that parents aren't supposed to be their kids' friends, but we go for walks every day. We talk. And I'm just plain going to miss her,
Yes.
But that doesn't. And so I think for a lot of women, there's a grieving process, and for a lot of men too. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're unhealthy. I think,
Sure.
But there is that grieving process and just trying to find a new identity as you come to a new stage in your life. But I think this is an exciting stage because there's no grandkids yet. The parents aren't sick yet. So, we don't have those needs. So we actually are free. Like, for the next few years, we're free.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah, so we're just talking about how to make that fun and some
travel.
Yeah, we're going to travel.
Are you?
We just bought an RV, actually, so I'm doing.
Yay.
Yeah, my husband's cut back some at work, and we're going to spend a lot of time on the road with speaking tours and.
Yay!
I have really good sex talk that I like to give in churches to women, so we're going to get on the road and do a lot of those in Texas and Florida and Arizona. Those are much better places to spend the winter than Canada, where I live, and.
Yeah.
And then do everywhere else in like the fall and the spring. So yeah, we're gonna have fun.
Nice. Okay. Well, any church leaders listening, Sheila is she's heading on the road, so keep her in mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's awesome. Well, okay. So then, would you share what the chief 3 things you feel has been central to your marital success?
I think number one is we just talk a lot.
Yeah.
I once heard it say that when you lose the ability to talk about the little things, you stop being able to talk about the big things.
Wow.
So let's say that there's something really big in your marriage. Maybe it's that you don't agree on finances. Maybe you don't agree on a move that you need to make. Maybe you don't agree on how we're going to raise the kids. Maybe one of you is just feeling unloved. The problem is you can't address those issues unless you can also just plain talk about little things. And often couples stop talking about the little things because all they talk about is logistics. Who's going to take mom to get the MRI? Who's going to pick up Johnny from karate? Who's going to pick up milk because we're out of milk? And the majority of your conversations are about that. And then you'd never talk about, so how was your day? Or What are you feeling today? What are you thinking today? And we need to keep talking about those little things, because when we talk about the little things, just, how are you? What's going on? Tell me what the highlight of your day was. When we talk about those things, we build goodwill. We build this idea that we like being together. And when you have that, then it's much easier to address the big things in your marriage. So one thing Keith and I do almost every day, we take a walk after dinner, or we put a hot tub in a couple of years ago. So in the winter when it's too cold to take a walk, we head out in the hot tub.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Great idea.
Well, okay, seriously, hot tub, best parenting thing we ever did. Someone told us this. Their kids were almost entering teenagehood, but they said, if you want your kids to talk to you, get a hot tub, because they'll sit in the hot tub with you and they will talk. So we did anyway. But,
that's awesome. And you can't bring your phone in the hot tub. That's a brilliant.
Oh yeah. So anyway, but we spend time talking together every day, and I think that is a huge thing, is to just carve out time to talk, because a lot of couples just stop doing that and they get too busy. Wow. So so okay, you asked for 3 things, right? Okay, so number 1, just to talk. Number 2, we've really tried to keep one thing that we do together, find a hobby that we do together. And a couple of years ago, we started bird watching. My husband's way more into it than I am. I mean, he can identify sounds. He can, he gets really, really into this. I'm not really that into it, but I like being out in nature, and I like going for walks, and I love hikes. So, why not? So we find this thing to do that he likes more than I do, but I still enjoy it, and we do get to spend time together, and it's something we do without the kids. So, just find something that you can do. That's important. And then the other one, and I honestly think this is important, is just prioritize sex. Really, just try to, and it doesn't always have to be earth-shattering, okay? You don't always need the earth to move or whatever. But, it's a way of checking in with each other and making sure that it's that you're both okay. And I think far too many people are finding that sex goes by the wayside. When I did the surveys for the Good Girls Guide to Great Sex, I think the number was 42.7%, if I remember that correctly, of couples make love less than once a week. So that's almost half. Okay, almost half report making love less.
Oh, man. Yeah.
And, that's a problem.
Yeah. Yes.
And so, and I know sometimes we've got shift work, or we've got babies or whatever, but just prioritize it, because we all need it,
Yeah. It's interesting because, just to recap, I wanted to mention, so number 1, it was talk about the little things and the big things. Extra credit, get a hot tub. Number 2, have a common activity that you do, just you and your spouse together. I like that a lot. And then number 3, prioritize sex. And I hear you. It is needed to prioritize. And I think sometimes as women, physiologically, we're wired to basically put our mind in gear before our body gets in gear. Generally, isn't that the truth? Yeah. So if we choose to have sex, the choice, and then our body starts kind of getting into it. So as I do talk, we're talking to wives here. Just for Sheila to say, prioritize it. That's how a wonderful 23 years of marriage is built on prioritizing this important part. It's awesome. Cool. Okay. Well, let me ask you, if you're comfortable. Now, we've talked about this a lot so far, but specifically with sex, can you give us a tip that you wish someone let you in on earlier?
I don't know how explicit I'm allowed to be. Am I allowed to?
It's actually wholly up to you, because people share quite a lot here, or, so it's really, I'd love for you to share if you can.
Okay. All right. Here we go. One of the things that women especially need to understand, okay, is that the reason that sex feels good is not because of nerves in the vagina. It's because of your clitoris, all right? And when making love, that is not always engaged, okay? So there's a very, very simple thing that you can do. It's really simple to make it feel better. And that's just simply lift up your hips. Okay. And here's what I mean.
Okay.
Let's say you're standing up and just bring your buttocks in. Okay. Bring your buttocks in. Okay. That's the same move. Okay. Because when you do that, you're actually putting pressure on the clitoris. All right. And when you're doing that and you're making love, he's far more likely to get the right angle. Because what we do instead is we don't engage those muscles, and then nothing really happens. And it's such a simple change to make. I've often heard people say, well, just put a pillow under your butt and the angle will be better. Unless you're engaging the muscles, the pillow will do nothing. Okay?
Oh, that's good. Yep.
So just make a point of just like engaging the muscle, just simply, and it's that simple, and that can make a tremendous difference for women. All right.
Fantastic. Thank you for that.
It's simple, and sometimes a lot of women find that it's much easier if they're on top for that to feel good. And just experiment. And one thing that I have found as a woman, and other women have told me the same thing too, is like this idea of trying 19 different positions doesn't really turn them on much, because once you found a position that actually works, you want to stick to that position. Okay.
Oh, yeah. Right.
It's so hard to find the one that works. Like I don't, So what I often say is like use the others for foreplay, but then finish in the one that works for you. Okay.
Okay. Awesome. Okay. Yay. That's awesome. That's actually really, really helpful. Thank you. That's great. Well, okay. So then in talking about your specific marriage, what opportunities have you had to serve and get to know God? Now, FYI, you served God right just a moment ago by helping his daughters feel better in sex, so that was great. But also, just in terms of your marriage and your relationship with God, I'm interested in how you've gotten to know him better through your marriage.
Yeah, this is a really hard one for a lot of couples, because so many of us have this idea that, the guy has to be the big spiritual leader, or we want him to lead us in devotions, and then he doesn't do that, and then we feel like marriage isn't spiritual. And one of the best books I ever read that made a huge difference in my own spiritual life was Sacred Pathways by Gary Thomas.
Yes.
Gary tends to write a lot about marriage. Like you've probably heard of Sacred Marriage, and he's written Sacred Parenting and all this. But he wrote this one book that is so different from any of his other books. But he wrote about how there's 9 different ways that people relate to God or feel God the most. Yeah. And only one of them, which would be more the academic, intellectual way, is really valued in most evangelical churches today. The kind where you read the Bible with highlighters and, and multiple pens and you journal. And that is wonderful to do. And if that's your spiritual pathway, more power to you. But many people don't have that as their main way of feeling God. Many people feel God most when they're out in nature or when they're serving. Like how many guys really get involved when their church throws, give oil changes to all the single parents today, right? And you invite single parents in the neighborhood to come get an oil change, and all of a sudden every guy in the church is out there. Yeah. Because they really do want to serve, but they just don't get that excited about sitting through a sermon. And it doesn't mean they're not as spiritual, right? And so that book is really opened my eyes. Interestingly, my husband and I both have the same 2 sacred pathways, which is really quite funny. And
what are they?
We're both nature, so I think that's why I like taking hikes. That's when I feel good the most. And we're traditional, we love liturgy. One of the best churches we ever were at was an Anglican church. We love those, and yet we go to a very evangelical church. So, but whenever the communion is passed, I always say, "The blood of Christ shed for you," under my breath, so the next person goes like that.
Wow.
It just feels better, and I have this insatiable urge to make the sign of the cross all the time. But I just, but
I love that.
Both my husband and I are real traditionalists, and we're real nature people. And that means that we don't always feel the most comfortable in the church that we go to, So we understand that about ourselves, and that's okay. Yeah. So we have this prayer book that we work through at home and things like that. But I think one of the best things that couples can do is try to figure out what is it that God has called you to as a couple. Like let's look at, because we all have our unique spiritual gifts as individuals. But what can God call you to as a couple? And I have a good friend, couple, Steve and Tammy. And Steve is life of the party. He's energetic. He's a jokester. And Tammy is very organized and very mature and calming. And so the two of them work amazing running youth programs. Wow. Because Steve can get everyone excited, and Tammy can make sure no one ends up in the emergency room, right? So like the two of them together work great for youth groups. But if only one of them was trying to run the youth group, it wouldn't work.
Yeah, that's right.
So like look at the two, and so they've always served with youth until, well, more recently God's moving them into other ministries, but I mean that, as a couple, they've always served together. And so look at you guys together and say, where can we serve? Because I truly believe that when couples are serving and doing things together, you just get closer in your marriage, and God wants us to reach out. And the more we reach out, the less we are focused on our own issues, and the less we ruminate about our own problems, and the more invigorated we get. So Keith and I, we love teaching Sunday school. We've worked with the youth for years. We're phasing out of that now, but most of all, we speak together. So we've spoken at marriage conferences for the last 10 years and doing more of that, and that's been really fun.
That's so great. I really am grateful that you talked about Sacred Pathways. It's actually been on my list to read, and my pastor recommended it because my husband and I are very, very different, and we connect to God in different ways too. And so, I'm really glad. So it'll be on the Delight Your Marriage show notes, so you can go there. It'll be all linked up. So I love that encouragement. Now, other than that, is there a book or program that you would specifically recommend?
For your spiritual life, you mean, or for?
Well, no, actually for our entire program, you said that you've got 9 so far. I mean, what would you like to chat about a specific book that you could recommend around the stuff that we've been talking about?
Well, okay. I mean, my favorite book that I wrote was 31 Days to Great Sex. So.
Yeah. Why was it your favorite?
Well, maybe I'm being facetious. I think my favorite one actually is The Good Girl's Guide to Great Sex, but I think most men's favorite book is 31 Days to Great Sex. But
Okay. I was like, I'm familiar with some of the topics, some of the books. I've been waiting to not read them before I interview them, so everything's fresh and I can. But yeah, now it makes sense what you're saying. Okay, yes.
Yeah, but it's a challenge that I wrote. It's really easy. It's like you read 3 to 5 pages a night together, and then you just do what it says. And the important thing to remember is that it's 31 days to great sex, not 31 days of great sex. And that's a huge difference. So I am not saying you have to have sex every day for 31 days.
Okay.
It's a series of exercises which helps you learn to communicate better, to be more affectionate, to figure out what each other likes. And certainly a lot of the days are racy, but a lot of the days are also just learning how to talk again, because most couples do not know how to talk about this. And having a book that takes you through very simple questions, very simple things to do every day can be a lot easier to open up some of those conversations that you've been scared to have.
That's awesome. Very cool. Okay, so it's actually we had a guest who was a listener on a couple episodes ago, Karen, and she recommended to me. She said she's been reading one of your books, so they've been reading it every night, and so it's been a huge help. And not only that, actually a number of guests. Otherwise, Jay from Hot, Holy, and Humorous, she also recommended your book.
Oh yeah,
so, yeah. So we're I'm excited to dive into these. This is really exciting. Okay, so my kind of final question to you is, if you could go back to year 1 in your marriage and sit yourself down, what is one piece of advice that you would give to you?
Okay, well. Most of my problems were with sex, okay? So my advice is going to be about sex, but I think this is transferable to other problems. So if sex isn't your problem, just listen to the principle behind it. But I started really wallowing and really ruminating on my problems. And I would say, sex is awful. The world's been lying to me. I'm the only one who really understands how awful this really is. Everyone else has just drank the Kool-Aid and, and they don't get it. And I'm the only one who sees the truth. And then one day I realized, okay, my experience is that sex is awful, but God created it to be good. And so can I believe God even if I can't see how that is possible, or even if I haven't experienced that yet? Like what I think about God is more important than what I think about sex. Because if I believe God, then it will be possible for sex to be better. But if I'm just concentrating on sex, I'm not going to see it. And so I had to start believing God said this was good. And so if God says this was good, and if God wants this for me, then why in the world would I let myself miss out on that? And so it became a research project that I was more energized to figure out about, because I started to believe that God wanted the best for me. And sometimes we need to get out of our own experience and say, okay, what did God really create me for? And if God created you for a big life, don't settle for something less. If God created you for an amazing marriage, then do something about it. Believe that that's what God wants for you. And even if you can't see how right now, believe it about God, and I think that He will let you see the path before you.
Oh, that's so good. That's so good. I mean, that's we walk by faith and not by sight. I mean, that's exactly, it's just beautiful advice. Thank you for that. Okay, so two things I want to ask you then is, where can our audience find and connect with you online?
Yeah, well, every day I blog to lovehonorandvacuum.com, and it's quite an active community. I'm also on Facebook. You type into Love, Honor, and Vacuum, and so that's really fun. I talk a lot about sex, but that's not the only thing I talk about. So mostly marriage, a lot of fun. So go there, and then we're going to ask another thing. What was your other thing?
I was going to ask if you wanted to, if churches could contact you about speaking in the near future. Is that something that you're open to?
Absolutely. And in fact, we're trying to book right now. Specifically, we're booking for, let me think, the Carolinas and Florida, Texas, Georgia, like sort of next year. But we're open to going, and the Northeast, like Vermont, Maine, those kind of all the way down, because I'm driving all the way down.
Yay!
But that's specifically for the fall of 2015. But then we're going to be in other places. We've got California, other places planned as well for 2016. So yes, please just go to lovehonorandvacuum.com and click on the events tab at the top, and there's ways that you can get in contact with me there.
Awesome. You know what we'll do? We'll also have that linked up in the show notes so people can click there. But this has been so fun, Sheila. Thank you for all of your insight, advice, wisdom. It's just you're doing awesome stuff, and I'm excited to finally dive into your books. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much.
Wow. Thank you so much, Sheila. This was such a blessing to be able to chat with you and get all of this insights and things that are going to be helping our marriages even immediately. And wasn't that tip excellent? Okay, so if you have not yet listened to my webinar, that's delightyourmarriage.com/webinar, how to make him wild for you, the 5 secrets of receiving love and passion in God's plan. I want you to go to delightyourmarriage.com/webinar, and otherwise definitely go to delightyourmarriage.com and get all of the show notes associated with today's broadcast, because I've got all of it linked up. You can check out Sheila's resources, and she's got so much for free, as well as check out her books. That's definitely something that would be worth the $15 investment to, hang out together for the evening, 2 to 3 pages, and get better sex in that shorter time. So anyway, I'll talk to you next time on Tuesday, and God bless you. Praying for you and your marriage. Love you. Bye.
Thanks for listening. If you've been blessed by this, why not share it? Until next time, live with love, wisdom, and passion.